Hello, everyone. So following on from last week's webinar, which was really well received, we were actually inundated with questions, which I think really just does show the impact of GPT in our industry at the moment. Now, as you can imagine, with all those questions, we couldn't answer them all. There were just too many. So what the three of us decided to do was get together here for a chat today, try and run over some old questions that we've asked and see if we could get some of them answered for you. As with last week, I'm joined by my good friends, Mark Opperman and Graham Bragg. Hi, guys.
Hi.
How you doing?
So what we're going to do then is, I'll tell you what, Graham, there was a lot of chat about the whole AI and the GPT thing. Now, one of the questions that came through was, how can people make the most of ChatGPT? The technology itself, but at the same time contain it, because we know there's a lot of filtering needs doing. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because most of the people I speak to now, as I'm sure yourself, Mark, are already talking about we're testing it, we're trying it. We've got somebody with a dev environment playing with ChatGPT, and it's given us some great results. Yes, there's some danger in there, but we can tailor it and we can do all these exciting things. ChatGPT is a fantastic tool. It really is. It's a large language model. The world has moved on in AI, and it's one of the better ones that everybody has access to. Let's put it that way. So why not use it? But again, it's what, as you say, what do you use it for? We talked about dangers. We talked about hallucinations on the last call. And then with some very high levels of issues as well, especially in this regulated industry that we're talking about here. But as you say, ChatGPT can be used for some really good, powerful, interesting things. Now, I think I mentioned briefly before on the webinar that, you can pull in external data. You can populate the content of your messages and conversations with customers with literally anything. It can be data from a third party, which could easily be GPT. So if you've trained a model where ChatGPT is coming up with some really good answers based on maybe some simple FAQs that don't use legal pieces and don't include balances and that sort of thing, no reason you can't use it. So all WebBO would do would reach out and pull that answer in and present that back to the customer. And then when the answer came back to that again, or the next question came back again, would be processed within WebBO. So for things like maybe standard FAQs, normal things that, again, just aren't sort of tied down to FCA regs and that sort of stuff, yeah, bring GPT in.
The only issue there, Graham, that you'd come across is that the answer that you give today, the models are changing all the time with ChatGPT. So the answer that so to exactly the same question, the answer it gave 2 months ago may be a different one, and that may change overnight. So that's where this is an open source piece of technology, and it is open to change. So that would be the one thing, Enzo, that there's a huge difference between an enterprise controlled model and an open source one. Again, you're not paying for the open source, so it's somebody else. And more importantly, if you put any information on that, or the customer puts any information on, that's PPI, that personal information, it would be where is that information then stored? So that would be where a compliance concern may be. So brilliant. It's really clever. Like everybody that tries it, Graham, you see them smiling, you kind of go, oh yeah, it's really great answer.
Absolutely, Mark, agree. Yeah,
it's an enterprise. That's the one thing. Now, the interesting thing is that you'll see Microsoft, again, the biggest investor in OpenAI, who has ChatGPT. They're taking the technology and they're deploying it in a business sense in their Copilot offering. And again, at the latest, the CEO was only giving the latest quarterly results there. And again, Copilot is a huge play for them. They've invested billions in this area. So again, just very similar to what Webby are doing with we're calling Copilot as well, where it's going to generate the best next answer for the agent to pick. Very similar things on the again, we'll most likely see it on the Teams product more before anything else. So again, there's some great upsides, but there is downsides, and it's to be aware, and it's getting that balance right, isn't it? That you're using it and using it cleverly.
I'm just conscious because obviously I know we could talk about the GPT thing for forever, and there's so many things to get through. Something else that's come up a lot is, because obviously specializing as we do in conversational AI, is how has conversational AI actually enhanced or can enhance the working life of an agent? Thinking of different scenarios, because that's a hot topic now, because obviously people are really embracing the technology. But just to give people an understanding, I think sometimes say, look, people say to me, well, okay, it sounds great, but how's it enhancing the working lives of agents?
And do you know what? There is probably 3 or 4 streams that I answer alone. So the first thing is that it's a digital conversation versus a phone call. Collections and this whole industry has been traditionally on the phone, and more and more people are moving away from the phone. Companies are finding it more difficult to engage with their customers on the phone. Companies are finding it more difficult to attract and retain staff when it's around phone work. So the first thing is digital is on a digital agent where they're handling digital conversations. It's a much more attractive option for the agent. We're seeing our clients recruiting people easier for a digital role versus a traditional phone role. Then you look at the job itself, and it's a lot more interesting than that mundane. If you have somebody asking you 40 times a day, what's my balance and when's the next payment due? There's no real complexity there. So all of those simple FAQs, typically 40 to 50% of all conversations immediately can be automated by just bringing that piece of data in. Then the next part would be where the conversational AI is going to automate more, recognize the intent, help the person get through the ID and V a lot sooner. So when it does get to the agent, it's something that the agent can have a proper impact on. So again, it's not that mundane over and over. But then the next step on is the conversational AI would also be doing some of the heavy lifting for the agent, as in that on the co-pilot that we just mentioned, it more than likely will be then suggesting the best answer to go back to the customer based on previous interactions and the most successful outcomes. So it actually has quite a dramatic impact right across from before they even start the job to when they start and then when they get into it on a day-to-day basis. So it actually, as I say, there's a number of strings to that answer. So it's quite a wide and varied one.
I think just to add to that, sorry Enzo, there just jumping in. Mark and I, we went and sat not too long ago with a team of agents that use our solution on the digital side, and the conversations were really interesting. Just from the point of view as well, I didn't know what it was going to offer us. We thought some of us might lose our jobs, etc., etc. But it actually now, the whole thing about, well, it's helping me. And the conversations I get are the interesting conversations. And we originally look at it from the point of view of saying, well, what does it offer you as a business? Well, it offers a business. We get more done with less. Same amount of agents can now do a lot more conversations because X, Y, and Z of it, percentage-wise, is automated. And then you start to look at the soft side of it as well. And as Mark said there, hiring people is not easy in contact centers these days. But when you've got a digital solution in place, such as Webio, I'm talking about 2 of our larger clients who have sort of 50 plus agents working digitally. They are actually having to pick from the people that are applying for the jobs. Whereas on the other side, as Mark's already said there, for the telephony side of it, they just can't get anybody to fill the roles. So it's really helping the people. And what they're doing is they're enjoying their job better. They're therefore doing a better job. And it rolls and rolls and rolls, and it's a win throughout.
I think it's also
just on that, it's a funny story. Just on that, Enzo, the funny story that you'll know exactly who I'm talking about, Graham. It's not that often that you get jazz hands from somebody when you show them new technology.
I do. But
this was where we were automating the income and expenditure, and you went from a 25-minute phone call typically to a 5-minute interaction over a digital channel. The agents were going, "Oh my God, this is so great!"
I'm glad you brought that. That was one of the best encounters I ever had with the agents, because we often will talk to the supervisors, the managers, the business leaders. We always try and involve the agents, because that's where we learn what really works, what doesn't work. And Mark's right. It was a really interesting one. We just replaced I&E from phones into digital. It was a conversational form, and the data was better. The business was telling us, and more were getting completed. All great stuff. But I went to the agent and said, "Well, how are you finding the I&Es?" And literally, as Mark says, there was such excitement. This has made my life so much easier, and it's just lovely to see.
And I think it's interesting that you both touched on that, because if you cast your mind back, and I've spoken to so many call center managers in my career, I mean countless, as you probably both have, and there was a time prior to the whole COVID thing when everybody went to a call center. Generally, the call center turned up in a town. It was the biggest employer in the town. Everybody went in there. But ever since virtual working, you've really seen call centers up their game. And this is one of the things we're talking about. They've got to give the agents the tools, because retention, from my conversations anyway with most call center managers, retention is their biggest headache, because now that the agents can work virtually, they are being poached everywhere. And you put an agent in a situation where you've got decent tools, conversational AI being one of them. Not only does it give all the benefits you guys have spoken about, but think of the ease of training. That conversational AI will also help that agent sit right into the job quickly and be trained at a much quicker pace, which means they're a happier agent. As you've just mentioned, a couple of examples there about how it can make their job easier, and that call center manager has now got a group of happy agents and no fear of losing any.
Very much so, Enzo. It does impact on it a lot. So agreed. Tell me,
Mark, have you had a power cut there? There, you've got a little dull.
No, don't. I think it is the evening, and it's just the rain is coming down now, and it's gone completely black outside. So apologies. I've got my lamp on the table that I will probably go, "Ooh, there we go." I won't. Enzo, what are the other questions that you have?
Well, actually, and here's one that came in, and this is I'm just going to read this out. So AI, especially Gen AI, requires time to ingest information. For instance, documents. How long does it take to have the platform ready after the ingestion? Any comments on that?
It's a real mixed answer. You've specifically said documents there. Documents is not something we would generally get most of the data of a conversation on, but we can. Documents can be scanned, OCR'd, and that data lifted off. But you're generally just bringing that data into what that client has done. It's not normally sort of sentences of a conversation that's been pre-written or posted in, because obviously when it's a digital message, it's an email, or it's an SMS or a WhatsApp, whatever, it is digitally written, so the words are actually there. So from a document point of view, you're looking at a number of things. Generally, what part of that document is relevant to this customer and the interaction that I have with them? Is it an image that I need to do some form of fraud check on? Is it just a passport number? Is it a bank account number and a balance? Am I looking for any sort of strange fraudulent numbers in there? And that sort of thing can be ingested very, very quickly, because the templates for that OCR will know the sort of document it is. It will know where to look. It will bring them up. It'll extract that information and then post it to that customer's account, which can then be used to make decisions on. When it comes to the larger data and learning about the customers and where things are going, you say you're building up propensity models on, is this person sort of giving me mistruths, to put it politely, or do I think that their payment promise isn't going to stick? And learning those things that are specific to your business, it all depends on the quality of your data and how it's scored. And Mark, I'm going to pass over to you from the point of view. I know you've done a little bit of homework on that, the sort of average amount of utterances and lines to come in to sort of give good results. I've got some numbers, but I know, again, let's exchange backwards and forwards here.
Now look, as we mentioned we manage millions and millions of conversations, hence the reason that when we talk about conversational AI, it's out of the box, ready to go. The list of intents that we have, all those, understanding what the conversation, but to take it to the next level for your business, typically you're going to start with about 10,000 lines of data. That's a conversation end to end with an outcome tagged. Now, it can start on smaller, but what I'm talking about there is where it's going to make a meaningful difference and a jump forward. So, look, any of these things, it's like petrol in a car, or if it's an EV, you have to charge the blooming thing. It takes fuel, and fuel in this instance is data. The longer that and the more data that you have, it will get trained over a period of time. Now, what we've seen is that you make significant jumps, and then the rate of improvement, they'll never be 100%. So anybody that tells you that is probably they're talking BS, I think is the nice word of putting it. But it's about getting that highest level of accuracy, and that's achieved by that constant learning and the model learning itself. And that's something that, again, we can get into and talk about in a more lengthy way, which, again, there's a lot of we could spend an hour and a half, 2 hours on that alone, but I'm conscious that it's give an answer and maybe then move on to the next question, because
I'm just going to add one piece at the end of that, Mark, because one thing that will be queried on that is with the utterances from my customer, a model being built, is that data shared around? No. Just want to get that in very quickly from a security perspective. When you're building, say, as Mark says, out of the box, there is a good model there that's been built from millions of conversations, all anonymized, obviously. It's the algorithms based on the type of conversation, the sort of wording used, nothing personal. But when you start to add your own utterances from your own customers, that gets applied purely to your account on top of the main algorithms. So that cannot be shared outside. I think we've got a couple of questions on security. We can dig into that a little bit deeper further on, and the dangers of that.
Fair comment.
To get that in quickly.
Yeah, no, good to mention, Graham, because that is it's a valid point, and it would be a concern for any compliance team, data security team.
Now, on that note,
perfect.
And thank you for gliding in there. That was beautifully set up.
Seamless.
Obviously, Webio are known. We're well known in the conversational AI sector. One of the biggest, I guess, one of the most well-known verticals for us is the credit collection sector. Now, one of the questions did come in ironically, and it was, what measures are in place to ensure data security and privacy in AI driven around debt collection? So what measures are there to protect?
Okay, so the first thing, I mentioned it earlier about sort of GPT. It's an open source tool that you go on, you put in your information, and it'll give you an answer back. You don't have any control where that information, that endpoint is, where the servers that are doing this, where the information is being stored. That isn't going to be, let's look at it. That's not going to be a viable enterprise solution for any large scale business. They will want to know exactly, they'll want geofencing on the data. Is that inside the UK? Is that inside the EU? Or what zone or geo that they would want it in? There will be a long list of queries and questions. Some of the due diligence questionnaires that we would receive, they can stretch to 30, 40, 50 pages. And we've got ISO 27001, UCAS accreditation, and the list goes on and on. Now, look, it's our bread and butter every day of the week. So the key thing about when we talk about Webio technology, for starters, it's in the Webio cloud, the Webio enterprise cloud, and the conversational AI is Webio technology built in that cloud, that offering. So it's not going out anywhere else. So that is the one thing that, and again, to be honest, we've had conversations where we use some other tools as well. The likes of Google Dialogflow would be a good example. We've used that for quite a number of years. Some clients would be happy using it, others wouldn't be. And it's surprising the number of large organizations that when they don't have precise control over the data, that actually they would prefer not to use it rather than use it. So it's actually I'm not going to say halt innovation, but we won't use it to do something clever for fear of the data. And that's a growing concern So that will be something that every enterprise really needs to do their due diligence on. Where is the data being processed, managed, stored, and who's doing it, and what third parties get access to it. Again, we can give definitive answers on all these because you're talking with the people who actually own it, manage it, and control it. So the same can't be said for the likes of, ringing up Microsoft to ask them a question or OpenAI. Good luck to you. You'll be a while on hold.
And we're certainly
we're
used
seeing
to.
lots of horror. Sorry, Enzo, go ahead.
I was going to say we're certainly used to lengthy questionnaires when it comes to security questions, aren't we?
That's that's the bread and butter of. It's the most valuable asset of most of our clients. Is their business is all around that data, protecting their customer data, because their customers have a high confidence in them. Like there's horror stories out there where it's all gone terribly wrong, and that's every company works hard to avoid that.
Yeah, and I think that's we talked about large language models, closed language models, and you mentioned there geofencing, ring fencing. One of the things we work really hard on, because we have to, because as you say, Mark, it's the bread and butter of most businesses, their data. We have to look after it. When it's with us, it has to be secure. Nothing can bleed across anything. Your data stays ring fenced to your business at the top level of security and gets used only for you. Generic learnings, yes, algorithms can be built from, but nothing that's specific to your business or your customers. It's a key piece. I've got to be honest with you, and I can put my hands up to this. I'm really, really pleased. We've never failed any DPA or compliance checks so far. We've got through every one of them. So we're doing something right, okay? I hope.
That sounds like a challenge. Somebody fails.
Please, no, don't.
Just one last thing, Enzo, on that. It would be a case of where the area that a lot of people will be talking about, we mentioned it already, is explainable AI. Understanding how the models work, because that is something that is going to be a lot more important over the next couple of years. So that's just something to throw into the mix.
Okay. I'm just gonna just flip it. So I'm conscious of time, but I'm going to flip it now. We talked about the impact of conversational AI from an agent's point of view and all the benefits. Now, just staying on the vertical of collections, for example, but what is the impact of conversational AI when you're looking at it from a debtor's perspective in that collections process? What benefits are there on the customer side of our customers using the conversational AI? Where do they benefit? I'm just going to flip it round now.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in there, Graham, and I'll hand over to you. I'm going to say one thing. Make it really easy for your customers to engage with you, and don't be surprised when they come back over and over and over again. It's channels that they want to use, the likes of SMS, the likes of WhatsApp, the likes of web chat. If you have an app, in-app message, look, it's where your customers are. Primarily, they're not on the phone, but as my simple takeaway, always make it really easy, make it a good experience. But there's loads of other things on the customer side. Graham, probably, if you were to take that baton and run with it, it would be good.
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, I think where you're coming with that is the world is moving digital first. Simple as that. This is what clients want to use. They don't want to speak to people anymore, especially the new generations. Ones below you and I, Mark, possibly yourself there, Enzo. It's not the way to pick up the phone and speak to somebody. It's I want to do it on my device. I'd rather do it, and there's lots of advantages.
27, Graham.
27 what? Stone. You better stand up. I'm not sure that's true. Leave it. I'm just saying it's a dangerous area.
At me, the years have been kind, but the weekends have been hell, and that's all I'll say.
And that works for me. But no, I mean, from the point of view of digital first, it is a really important key part of it. But where does AI come into that? Yes, great, digital. Agents can answer digital questions. Of course they can. It just goes over to a screen, or they, in the old days, would have a device with WhatsApp on it and would respond. AI gives so many additional benefits. It gives, first off, the obvious one, 24/7. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. That conversation can be controlled and worked by the customer. We all know when you look at the stats, some customers will go backwards, forwards, resolution sorted. Others will go backwards, forwards, an hour goes by because they're back at work. They've jumped in the car, and this is where digital owns lots of things. So what I look at really is the importance of what we call contextual understanding. And contextual understanding means it knows where you are in the journey. It remembers what's already happened beforehand. It's pulled out all the relevant bits of information that you've given them and continuing that conversation on without having to start again. Because we all know in the old days, you'd ring somebody, you'd answer questions, somebody will call you back or you'd be transferred. You repeated and you repeated and you repeated yourself. So a conversation with AI that's understanding your intent, remembers who you are, has pulled details in and links them together, is giving real contextual understanding, which is basically saying, I know where you got to, let's just continue on from that point. And those things are really key. And it gives the customer a much better conversational experience. And that's why they, as you say, will come back and want to use it again. And that's the key of AI, really.
I think the only thing I'd add to that is, and again, this is from talking to our customers, and certainly something I found when you looked at this technology is, I think the frustration people have with what I call the dumb bot technology. And I think from an experience from a customer to have a conversation, with this technology and not worry about not spelling something correctly, being able to use their normal language, not having to format it in a certain way, it just makes that whole experience really pleasant, and they don't get frustrated and turn off.
Enzo, this is what, to me, where the word conversational AI comes in. It's conversational. I can say it the way I would say it to a human. And anyone who's watched the webinars and listened to me talk before, I always say, the whole idea of AI is to offer a better experience at 24/7 than this. But actually, the main first goal is it's got to be the same as talking to an agent, a human agent. It's got to be, it can't go backwards, because as soon as you go backwards, as you say, like the old days, I spoke to bots. Can you tell me that? I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. 3 minutes later, I told them 3 times, and I cut it off. That can't happen. And this is where AI being used properly, with proper intents that understand specifically your industry types, the sort of questions you're going to get that are really nuanced, having that is really key. And that's what makes the day different. So.
Okay, so look, we've got time for one more question, because I'm just conscious of time. So, and again, there are so many, and it's lovely to see. What would you say, guys? And this is a bit of a tricky one, because it kind of focuses on the negative, but really it gives an opportunity for us to explain. What would you say are the main barriers to the adoption of AI, conversational AI? What are the main barriers, whether it be in collections, just generally, if you look at our customers across the board? What would you say? Because we've had all those conversations when we first started engaging with them. Obviously, they're enjoying the technology now. But what would you say, looking back, some of the main barriers?
Yeah, it's a good, interesting question. I think a lot of what we've said as being issues are the barriers, the compliancy piece. People have heard the horror stories, because the papers very quickly pick up on that. ChatGPT was trained to tell this DHL customer that everything it tells you back is I think it was the last one, was it would rhyme everything, wouldn't it? Someone had trained it to rhyme the responses back. Ridiculous, but somebody did it, right? And people are scared of that, because we say the regulated, compliant industry, you just can't do that. And I think those horror stories put people off. We talk about AI, not in our industry, doesn't work. And the other side of it is often that going backwards. Well, I've got agents doing these at the moment. We focus on really tight, heavy cases. Yeah, we get the heavy lifting bit, but actually, what do we do? I don't know. Will it try and do something it shouldn't be doing? And the lack of understanding of how you can make it control what it does and where it routes and what it does, those sort of things cause dangers. And basically, people are scared of that, and it stops them adopting the technology. Lack of understanding and seeing the horror stories. Mark, you've probably got a couple to add to that. They're the main ones I sort of hear.
Yeah, and really, the probably the fear of it's just that people don't fully get it and they don't understand it. Now, the only thing I would say there is that you take it one step at a time. You don't jump in at the deep end and be at 85% automation and using every bit. So to be honest, the thing that we would say to people is just start where you feel comfortable. And that could be where there is absolutely minimal automation and minimal real use of the conversational AI. But I can tell you what will happen is very quickly, when they see how it can be used, it's that gradual, and it's a bit like the wind gets into the sails of innovation and comfort. And then it's a case of where, jeepers, this really works, let's do more. And I've had the conversation with sort of team managers, compliance, risk directors, you name it. They've been all shapes and sizes, and they kind of go, oh my God, Jesus, we were a bit worried at the start, but my God, look at the results that are being delivered now. And I never, well, I sometimes do, never say I told you so, only sometimes. It's a little guilty pleasure. But it would be a case of where that would be go at a speed that your business is comfortable with. Don't be putting yourself under pressure, because that is, people will, don't do it just because they're uncomfortable. So innovation will get in the way, or that leap in innovation will get in the way. So innovation can be baby steps. And
no, I totally
it's really, don't be concerned.
A real life story there, Mark.
One thing I just want to add here is always what I call the elephant in the room. You're sitting there with the call center supervisors. There's always that fear. Talk about a barrier for AI, and it's job loss, job loss, job loss. What they don't realize once this is implemented, that actually it isn't about that. You are inundated with calls. All you're getting, as you said, Graham, you're getting the conversational AI to do the heavy lifting, and actually you still need all those agents. The difference being is they will deal with other things and other tasks where they can add even more value. And I think that's one of the main barriers. I think if I look at some of our customers, they've adopted it so well that actually they've just freed up agent time to do other tasks. So really, it wasn't a question, oh dear, if this turns up, does that mean the call center will be empty? It's actually the opposite.
Yeah, no, I'll give you a real life example of a quick one, but all I wanted to really pick on first was when you said the elephant in the room, Mark looked up at me. I'm assuming I'm on the picture above you still, Mark, which is quite worrying. Hurtful, in fact, to be honest with you. I know Christmas is a while back now, but still no need for that. What I was going to say was that, real life example of a new client that I signed up about a year ago now. Their whole thing was they had this fear of AI. Oh, you're one of the AI providers. We're going to go with someone who doesn't have the AI because we just don't think it. So look, what are you looking to do? What are you planning to do? Well, I said, look, we can just do a simple model, simple option without really AI in it. That just triages the messages to the right people. So, okay, so how do you do that? Well, it needs to understand the query, or it goes to somebody who does that. Well, it would make sense if it would try and route them to the right person. So very simple AI, simple intent gathering. And what that did was it routed all the conversations that started to come in via digital to the right department. And that for them was a huge win straight away, right? Just very simple bit of AI. And the next one was, well, let's look at what the next thing you do is. The next thing they did was every single call that came in, or every single exchange that came in, digital message that came in, before it started, had to be identified and verified. Standard, most people listening to this will know that as being a piece. So we said, look, we can use the AI to do that. So if we just say, what are you using? Well, we do date of birth and we do postcode. That wasn't what they were using, but they were using something similar to that. But if we could just take that bit away and then it arrived on the right desk already through that, would that be a benefit? Well, that could be quite handy. And basically, simple AI, entity capture, quick lookup check, 80% of everything that arrived on the desk was already ID and V'd. And just those two things, going to the right person at the right time, and the identification verification happening quickly and easy for the customer and for the client, basically push their NPS scores up by over 30% and save them, just those two things, save them over 20% of the time the agent would spend on calls. Just those two simple things. As you say, Mark, bite-sized chunks. But it's just, you don't have to start with everything. What are you comfortable with? Let's try something out,
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That's something that we would always, if somebody goes, I want to do all of this, we're going to actually pull you back, say, no, cool your jets. Let's plan this properly, because actually one of the things that you really need to realize is that if you were to jump into the deep end and try to do everything and you were still getting a good result, well, what are the bits that actually deliver the real results, and what are the bits in that process that maybe weren't as good as they could be? So it's about finding that base level each time, building on it, iteration, and that's, again, I don't want to just wave the flag of Webby all the time, but we put a lot of time and effort in to get the system to be fully configurable. So you're not talking about big coding. It's just somebody, like say the internal Webbio champion, being able to A/B test very easily, build different conversation flows. And as you said, Graham, it's about then just tagging on a little bit of conversational AI, add a little bit extra. It's amazing when you look back in 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months, you kind of go, my God, we've come some way. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
the journey